Hello, hello. Welcome to my channel on headphones. This is Christian Landaeta on this side of the road, Chile, Santiago, Chile. And I have the honor of greeting and for the first time talking to Ms. Mary Fahl.
Yes,
Yeah, welcome.
welcome. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. And of course, inevitably, I don't know what your feelings are, and I hope to talk about that later. October Project is what brings me here because I had some friends at Sony Music in Santiago, Chile.
Oh,
They were aware of this radio Future FM, that I was
um,
the programming director between 89 and 96. And then they were all the time paying attention to what new albums they could contribute with for the programming. And
yeah,
then this October Project record comes out that is so special. I can only think of bands, Mary, like Clannad. I'm
mhm,
sure you know them.
sure.
It's a very special type of music. It's not massive, but it's beautiful music and it's very well performed, etc., etc.
Mm,
So it's really good to have you here to talk about that and much more. Yeah.
yeah. It's
Uh-huh.
interesting. It's interesting. We had of if you look at our worldwide audience, we had almost no following in Asia at all. I think I have one Japanese fan, nothing China, nothing India, not just nothing. Um, no, really, I'm just trying to think, even Eastern Europe, nothing. But we had a pretty substantial following in all of Latin America. I don't know, something about our music spoke to that
Yeah.
sensibility. I mean, I know it's a very varied cultures in Latin America, but again, I still sell even my own CDs in
Uh-huh.
a lot of Brazil, a lot of Mexico, Colombia, different Chile. So I think even now it's due to radio stations that really played us, and I guess we must have, as you just mentioned, gotten airplay certainly on the radio station in Chile, and I also think, as I said, I think the sensibility of October Project was
Mhm.
in sync with sort of the way that Latinos hear music. First of all, the singers really sing in Latin America. Maybe not anymore, but when I think of like a Latin American voice, I think of Mercedes Sosa, and
Yeah.
that's a singer, and
Yeah.
we really sang, and it's very romantic, very melodic, you know.
And
Got
yeah,
groove.
and there's also some kind of melancholic feeling, some sadness about
Yes.
Violeta Parra, Victor Jara, which are the big idols here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that, for example, uh, Bury My Lovely has this rhythmic pattern that is very particular, is nothing like any pop rock
Mm,
pattern.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
that maybe is where they get feel catching the feeling. And
Hmm.
also there's something about the lyrics that I want to take again later. For example, about Where You Are, that I decided was an incredible song that I used to play as well. And
Hmm.
there is some drama, some sad stories, and I think that might maybe people here in Latin America, I'm speaking on behalf of myself and Chileans,
Yeah.
they identify with some not so cheerful music all the time, not so American in the most direct way of speaking.
Yeah.
Now, I know
Can
that
I
your
tell you a
voice,
funny story about a little
of
bit?
course.
I think it's not funny. It's very sweet actually, but I I have noticed that. So I mentioned Mercedes Sosa. I love her, and
Hmm.
I learned several of her songs just because I sing along with them in the car. And
Oh,
but I've noticed that anytime I sing um, the Violeta Parra song Alfonsina and the sea,
yeah.
that people from Latin America start crying every time. If
Well,
you want to
because
make someone from Chile cry, just sing that song. Okay.
yeah, you know what? Something very magical happened here. This is a little anecdote on my part.
Yeah.
The Dutch band Flerk,
Mhm.
which became very popular in the late 70s, and they finally came here in 1995, and I had the chance to interview Eric Wieser, the leader, the guitar player, fantastic
Yeah.
performer, and I showed him. the moments, los momentos, which is a very popular song by the Blobs, a very
Mhm.
psychedelic rock type of thing from the
Yeah.
70s. And they played their own version without no one knowing or expecting that. And it was incredible. The reaction was incredibly strong and very emotional because
Yeah.
how come that somebody, I don't know if you were born in New York or in America, in North
In,
America.
in around about a half hour
Yeah.
from New York City. Yeah.
Okay, but how come that Mary Fall comes up singing Alfonsina y el Mar? That's quite amazing. So that's a very strong emotional.
It's a great song.
Yeah.
And oh, there's so many. And it's also with Mercedes Sosa, um, her I think for me, she had maybe the best voice I've ever heard because it was I always say certain voices have a lot of emotional bandwidth in them. And when she sang, every note just was filled. It was honest. And it's also the timbre. I like an alto. I like someone with a deep, rich voice. And
Hmm.
she, when they say you could sing the phone book, she could have sung the phone book. And
Yeah, sure. You froze, by the way.
did you freeze? Uh-oh.
You did.
There you are. We're back again.
Is it that cold?
Not that bad. No,
Not
no,
that
I don't
cold.
know. We just froze there. Anyway.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, and do you know any, do you know Thanks to Life, Gracias a la Vida by Violeta
Gracias a
Parra?
la vida.
Ah, look at that.
Of course
Wow,
I
wow,
know
wow, wow,
it.
wow. You must come to Chile one day. I've been
It's a
thinking
big
that,
song I know in Chile. That became sort of an anthem, wasn't it?
yeah,
After they had the big it was the mining disaster in Chile. Yeah. That's
uh-huh.
a fantastic so it's so but when you know the background of the song that that Violeta Parra wrote it right before she committed suicide, right? So it's oh
Yes,
God,
yes.
it makes it even more poignant. Uh,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
quite difficult to understand, the lyrics and how the things ended up.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know that you have inspired even writers, songwriters in ghostly books like Anne Rice, and I think you have a connection with Mark Doyle. I don't know what can you tell us about that? Uh,
Mark Doyle is my music director now. Mark Doyle was a very in demand sideman guitar player, played with everybody, Brian Adams and Meatloaf and uh, Patti Smythe. He just was a go-to guy. He was on the road constantly, and then he since moved home, to Syracuse, got married, and is sort of the producer of that whole upstate New York area. And I was introduced to him through a manager, and who said, "Why don't you work with this guy?" And we our first project together was a reimagining of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. And so I worked with Mark and David Werner, who had a very substantial career of his own. I think he's on Epic Records, and um, I think he was known as Whiz Kid. And anyway, but between the two of them and me, we layer by layer by layer redid in our own way, our personal way, Dark Side of the Moon. And it was on V2 for V2 Records. And
mhm.
just as V2 was about to release the record, they ran out of money. They went bankrupt. And so they shipped me all the boxes of the records that would have gone out, and they gave me back the rights to the album. And I ended up years later uh, releasing the surround sound version of
Yeah.
this record, which had been mixed by Bob Clearmountain. And I don't have the surround sound
Hmm. Hmm.
audio set up in my house. It's
Neither
just
do I.
not set up, but um, it's for audiophiles, it became one of those word of mouth pass around albums because the way that we approached Dark Side was so perfectly suited to a surround audio setting. And anyway, so that's how I met Mark. And then a few years later, I I called him and said, I need a music director. Can you help me put a band together? And then we did our first gig was the live at the Mock. I can't believe I did that. I'm very ambitious. So we did live at the Mock Chunk Opera House, and the Mock Chunk has um, an in-house audio company that's state of the art, and they had won some awards for their live audience records. And so I said, let's record this. And then I said, well, as long as we're recording it, why don't we get it filmed? And so I had it
Mm,
filmed by a PBS, that's public television crew, that came in and filmed it exactly as a PBS would have filmed it. They have certain best practices. You have to light the audience a certain way. Anyway, I sent it to PBS and they accepted it and started, you know, airing it. And then the album went on to win an award for best live album in the folk genre. So anyway, that's how I met Mark, and he's been my music director ever since. And then I've made a couple of records with him. I made a Christmas album, and then I also recently made an album of covers from my youth, songs that made me want to be a singer and made me want to be a songwriter, songs that I learned to play guitar by. And I had so much fun making, because it was just pure love, all it was an homage to the singers and the bands and the songwriters that I really loved.
you know, um, last night I was checking some more videos before the interview, and I was really surprised, very pleasantly surprised that I found what child is this? And I was really
Oh,
amazed because since I was a child,
yeah.
I would, make what we call in Chile nacimiento, which is like the house where Jesus was born in a
Uh-huh.
hay, full of hay and cows and animals.
Right,
And
right,
while
right.
I was doing that, I would play the record by the Roger Warner Choral, which is this
Oh,
fantastic, yeah, and that version is amazing. And I didn't know that you had done this version. So congratulations and fantastic rendition. Really, 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 I was surprised.
well, I made a Christmas record for
Yeah.
people that hate Christmas music. So, and I don't like most Christmas music. So I made a record to please myself. And I I didn't really want to do it at the beginning. My husband was the one that kept
Mhm.
nudging me to do it. And then I ended up, it's the album of all the things I've ever done. It's the album I listen the most to, because the songs are so pretty, and I covered some very wintry songs as well. I do a Leonard Cohen song and a Joni Mitchell song, and
Why
songs that
didn't
remind me of winter.
why didn't you like it at first? I mean,
I didn't want to, no, I didn't want to make a Christmas record. I
okay.
really don't like Christmas music. But
Yeah.
after I got involved and I really started getting seriously involved in the arrangements, I ended up loving the record. I mean, I made a Christmas record that I would want to listen to. And and it's interesting because now my December is packed every
Uh-huh.
year with big Christmas shows that I do. So we've made it sort of a multimedia Christmas shows. And
Mhm.
yeah, they're lots of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're known to be one of the most special voices, I must say, acknowledged by several people of different areas. And I know how you get this, what do you do with this, praise that comes from people all the time? And because I think that most opinions uh, are similar. You have the most incredible and special voice, like
Uh,
very strong, deep.
Obviously it's nice to hear. You don't want to get, criticized.
Yep.
I think I have one of those voices, either you love it or you hate it. And so I don't have a voice like modern singers. I mean, the only one that, I mean, the style of singing that's very popular now is either screaming, blasting, girl power, or it's like
Yeah.
these little girl voices that everybody
Yeah.
sings.
Yeah. 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 Like,
And I don't
yeah.
sing like that, and I think it's because I grew up listening to my older sister, much older sister. Um, her records, she was a teenager in the 60s and I was a little girl. And so I was listening to Petula Clark and Shirley Bassey
Mm-hmm.
and Mama Cass, and big voiced. and I would sing along with those records, and it developed my voice. And I that's why I sing the way I sing. And um, but you know, I had problems getting played on the radio because people didn't like my voice. And again, because I sing big, and I
But
sing in an I guess I enunciate my words to my, I don't slur when I sing, you know. And it's always funny to me when, say, someone British sings as if they were born in Memphis, Tennessee. You know, they start singing like, it's like, honey, you're British. Why do you sound like that?
mhm, mhm.
And it's an affectation that kind of gets on my nerves. I but in terms of people complimenting me, I mean, my job, if it's an audience member, I'm glad they like it, because my job is to transport them. That is my job. That is my, for me, um, what I do is a calling. It really is. And my job is the one little thing on earth I do that I can make somebody's life a little nicer for, you know, those 4 minutes of a song. And I can transport you somehow. That's what I try to do. So if they like it and they like the way I sing, that's great. In terms of compliments, I mean, yeah, I get just as many derogatory comments as I get
Oh,
compliments. I kind of I they it kind of evens out for me. And certainly if it's someone in the business who you really respect a lot, and they notice it and say something, obviously that it's nice to be noticed or admired by your peers. I would say that that
mhm.
always means a lot to me, you know.
Now,
Other than
going,
that,
yeah,
it's like,
mhm. Yeah, no, it doesn't. Yeah,
right.
yeah. Going back a little bit to the Pink Floyd project, Dark Side of the Moon.
Mm.
Did the band ever has the band ever heard the album? Do you know that? Did you ever send them an album or no?
I well, we had to send them the album, and certainly their lawyers, when I was on
Yeah.
VT, because we had to get certain clearances for performing it and things like that. So I'm sure they're aware of it. I've never gotten any feedback. And
Mhm.
I mean, Roger Waters, I mean, he's, in terms of his artistry, I just think he's fantastic, and I
Mhm.
think kind of a prophet, but he is a scary guy. So I if I don't ever hear from him, I'm fine with that, because he scares me a little bit, you know.
Why?
I
Why?
think he could I could see him being litigious, not that he would have to be with me, but um you just you never know which way, you know, he's going to go. So, you know, I feel much better about Dave Gilmour hearing it, because he's the nice
Yeah.
Pink Floyd person. So,
Uh-huh.
anyway, but I'm sure I bet they've heard it. Why not? Of course they have, but you know, I never get
Uh-huh.
any.
Now, how successful uh, do you feel that writing songs finally became? Because you said that you were worried when October Project or you
It was
left
very
October
scary,
Project.
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very scary to write, because the bar had been set extremely high,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew that I knew I failure was not an option for me. I had to do it. And you know, I used to get a lot of comments from, right, you know, journalists or things like that. Oh, well, you're just a singer, you know, you could never write, you could never do. And so in a weird way, that motivated me to keep at it and keep at it. And you have to be bad at something for a while. You have to have the courage to be bad before you can get really good. And I I worked on it for a couple of years, 2.5 years or so, and I made a demo of. I finally felt like I had a handful of what I felt were good, really good songs. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a muscle that you have to just keep at it. And so I had songs like Paolo, and Raging Child, things that went on my Other Side of Time record. And then I made a demo and I got a lot of great reviews on that. I sold the demo and I got a press agent who was fantastic. Um, and then I put a band together and I wanted to see if I still had a fan base after those couple of years. And I started to tour it and I came to the attention of Sony Classical because I had sent my demo around to different you know labels and I was getting turned down. And so it's interesting. I've been reading have you read the Rick Rubin book on creativity? The case very good. He's Rick
Hmm.
Rubin, the producer,
Okay.
and he has a lot of good advice. And one of his bits of advice is to do what you do for yourself and to please yourself. And so that's with what I did when I was taking my band around and touring my early band. um, I thought, well, I guess you're never going to get a deal, Mary. And so you might as well do what you love the most. And because it doesn't matter if you're commercial or not. And so I started singing, oh, just songs I loved. I love medieval Spanish music
Yeah.
from the 11th, 12th century. And I had studied medieval history and literature, and so I just had a resonance with especially Ladino music from medieval Spain and just the harchas. So I started here and there, just including songs like that, not the whole show, but mixing them in and making them contemporary. And that's how I got to the attention of Sony Classical. And then I went up and I auditioned for them. I had to sing for them, and I sang some of my own songs. I sang a medieval Spanish song, Bene di Habibi, and then I had to sing. They made me sing an aria, and I'm not an opera singer, and but
Yeah.
I and
I,
they gave me a deal on the spot, and I think they were looking for something a little bit new, crossover, but interesting classical crossover. Not just a pretty soprano. So I got the deal, and that was that. So, and
well,
someday I would
hmm
still love to make a record of medieval Spanish music because it's the most beautiful. It's got those gorgeous minor key melodies, and they're very 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 sensual songs. And um yeah, it'd be really fun to do that. And yeah.
Uh-huh. No, I was going to ask something that you in part answered. I was going to ask if you've ever tried lyrical singing studies, and I asked because of your interpretation of Donizetti's Una furtiva lacrima in some shows
Yeah.
and recordings. And did you ever consider that way? Because I mean, yeah, that's the question.
Well, what I'm confused.
Did
Like,
now
considered what? Like
being
sing?
trained in lyrical
Oh,
singing?
no, 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 because my vocal range at this point, it's too late for that. And I'm not a mezzo at all. I mean, I can weave around up there, but I'm I just have a deep, I guess I'm a contralto.
Hmm.
And I just and I there are enough of those people that approach the music in that very structured, standard, classical, lyrical way. And I like to approach these songs my way, and I think I don't pretend to be I'm not classically trained. I feel sometimes as if I bring new life into those songs. I bring a freshness to them that maybe most classical singers don't. I mean, I have my favorite classical singers, and I mean, if I want to hear Puccini,
Mm.
I'm always going to go to Kiri Takano. She's the best to me. If I want to hear French, beautiful French songs, I'll go to Jesse Norman, or I'll go to, if I want to hear Canteloube, like Chant Auvergne, I'll go to
You know,
Frederica von Stade. I love her. Oh, I love her. And So it's music that I listen to. In fact, I have an album coming out this year. Um, I'm in talks with a potential very interesting label.
Mhm.
And but one way or the other, either independent or on a label, I'm releasing an album of French, beautiful French classical songs. And I I if I could live inside this music, just inhabit, I'd be very happy. So I do some Ravel, Poulenc, Fauré,
Okay.
Satie, that
Mhm.
kind of that kind of stuff.
Mhm. But you're not an opera fan.
No,
You're not.
I am an
No.
opera fan.
Ah,
No,
you are. Ah, okay. Yeah.
oh yeah. I mean, I love well, I love particular singers. Like I
Okay.
said, I
All
love
right.
Curie and as I said, Frederica von Stade, love her. Jesse Norman, some of the newer singers I'm liking too. Some of the recent ones that have come out. Anyway, no, I like and I when I was just out of college, I've told this story in a lot of my shows because it's very funny to me that I
Mhm.
ended up on Sony Classical singing, a tenor aria because when I was just out of college, um, and I couldn't find a job because I had that silly medieval degree, and I was waiting tables in New York and coming home to a swelteringly hot apartment in New York, and my air conditioning was broken, and so to get myself
Mhm.
cooled off, I would get into a bathtub with cold water.
Ah.
And I decided to get my mind off the heat. I would learn every Pavarotti aria there was. And I would just lay in the bathtub and I would sing. And I learned them phonetically. I don't speak Italian. And so when Sony said, "We'll sing an aria for us," I knew them all. It's like, well,
Yeah.
which one? Which one do you want to hear?
And
And
were your neighbors happy?
that's very funny. Very funny. I'm sure I was the talk of my
Yeah.
building.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Uh-huh.
yes, I used to sing along with Pavarotti, and so no, I love and those songs were a challenge for me, and it also really good at um, sort of training yourself vocally. I really had vocal problems unless I have, a virus or something,
Mhm.
laryngitis.
Mhm.
I don't, my voice doesn't get tired. So somehow I learned naturally how to sing and maintain, my vocal agility. So
Mhm. Now, yeah, you've been, and I think you're currently, or you've been recently doing mini tours of cafes and music centers, but you've also been singing in opera houses, like the one you mentioned
oh, I did
before.
yeah, I
Yeah.
did well, the Mock Chunk Opera House is for all kinds of shows, but
Mhm.
but no, I sang with the New Jersey Symphony, and they have an in-house composer who wrote a piece for me,
Oh.
um, and it was beautiful, very cinematic, and so I had so much fun doing that. I cried when it was over. We did about 4 or 5 shows of this, and I I never wanted it to end. It was beautiful. It was so beautiful to sing with an orchestra. I did that when I made the Sony record. I got to sing with an orchestra.
Uh-huh.
Uh, oh, it's magic. It's
So
absolutely.
what's the big contrast between playing, I mean, singing live with a band and an orchestra? Well, the answer
Well,
might be
first of
obvious,
all,
but
I can hear myself with the orchestra. It's
okay.
so funny that you have all of those people on stage and yet you can still hear yourself perfectly. Whereas
Mm.
with a band, sometimes, the guys get very loud
Ah,
sometimes.
okay.
So,
Uh-huh.
you
Yeah.
definitely need nice big monitors. That's one
Yes.
of the differences. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
But
and
yeah.
having
Mhm.
a conductor just really breathe with you is a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
Uh, so
Might
if
be
I
like
could, if
say
I could go
sailing.
ping, I would do that again in a
Was that?
heart.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I would. People often ask me, well, what would you love to do? And I have sort of a long list, but
Uh-huh.
I would love to sing with orchestras again. I would
Uh-huh.
love to. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, my question, Mario, was also how does the type of venue affect your performance? You just said that, and your interaction with
Oh,
the audience. But how can you reach new audiences in such places, or you find your usual followers? What happens?
oh, it depends. Some of these performing arts centers have their own built-in audience. They buy season tickets. That's
Okay,
always nice because um, it brings you to a new audience. And my audience skews older, and they like me. Um, so I'm sort of tailor-made for performing arts center audiences. And other than that, I mean, most of the places I play, they're coming to see me. They're fans,
okay.
and so uh, yeah, it's always, I think, for all of us out there that tour, it's hard to penetrate and find new audiences.
Okay. Now, there has to be an October project section in my conversation with you, if you don't mind. Yeah. And could it have been, speaking about the name, September Project? Why the name? And what happened between you and the band? Because I really don't know.
Well, I'm not going
Uh,
to go into like immense detail, but
yeah.
so it was October Project because we were all trying to decide on a name for the
Mm,
band, and we had all kinds of silly, we tried a bunch of things, and then we asked Emil Adler, um, who was, I guess, the music director of the band, and said, "Well, what are he had extensive files. He's a great filer, and we said, well, what are we filed under?" And it said October Project. And so the name stuck. That was it. And in terms of, uh, well, first of all, we were dropped by Sony after our second record. While we didn't do terribly, I think we sold about 60,000 records, but not nearly the amount. We sold about 500,000 records on our first. And Sony felt on the second record that we didn't have a hit, and they're a big label, and that was it. I mean, that was it. We were off, and I didn't feel any reason to move on with them. I felt demeaned, seriously. I was never going to be allowed to write or participate in any way on that level of things. And Lord knows, subsequently they worked with other singers and writers. So I knew I had absolutely no future with them, and I knew that I felt creatively they
mhm.
were. I felt the songs were in a rut, and the songs, instead of having the passion of the first record songs, which I loved, and I felt that I was suited to sing, the songs to me were getting more and more obscure and
Yeah.
a little too precious for my taste. And um, I felt that everything lost the passion. Things were going, and so I knew I had a tough road ahead of me on my own, but I knew it was a road I had to go down. I wanted creative freedom, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. And I was also told in no uncertain terms by Emil, in fact, that I was too stupid to have my own band, that of course I would never be able to do anything on my own. I'd never be able to write or have a band or tour or do any of those things. And it was actually probably the greatest gift I've ever been given. Because it was, when someone says you can't do something, that's a great motivator.
Mhm.
And um, and so I think I've continued to prove him to be absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
And again, I'm kind of thankful to him. And
In a
that's what
way, yeah. So you never ever sing any of those songs.
I
Uh,
do. Oh no, of course, because the audience,
Ask.
they if someone hasn't seen me since October Project, they want to hear. When I first went out on my own, I didn't sing October Project songs, and that was really stupid. I was like, what if, on the montage sequence of dumb things I have done,
Hmm.
that's right up there. That's the highlight reel. And but no, I sing. I probably do about three October Project songs in a show. The ones everybody comes to hear, like "Return to Me," songs like that. Yeah. I do them now.
But do you know,
But
did you,
I typically I do the ones I love. So yeah, but I
yeah,
do my show is a mixture of the songs I've written, my cover songs, some, it's a little bit of everything.
uh-huh. Now, as a Renaissance, as they say in England, fan, how did your collaboration with Annie Haslam and the band happen? I was surprised by that as well. Lovely lady, Annie Haslam.
Oh, she's wonderful. And
Yeah.
Annie doesn't live that far from me. She lives about a half an hour down the road.
Ah, okay.
And she came over for dinner actually. And so I'm trying to remember how we
But
got.
maybe you
It
were.
was through a photographer who kind
Uh,
of hooked us up, and then I met Annie, got to just get to know her. She's such a lovely human, and I had been a huge Renaissance fan in high school, loved Renaissance, and then she asked me to perform with her uh, at what is it, Keswick Theater
mhm.
in Bucks County, and so we sang "I Think of You," that old
Yeah.
Renaissance song. My
Uh,
15-year-old self was just in heaven, 'cause
sure.
I got to sing with Annie, and yeah,
Well, there's this famous album recorded at the Carnegie Hall, no less, and it's
yeah.
one of my favorite. But 1996 must have been released. Yeah, great repertoire. Now, you seem to have reached a moment where the music industry, besides some personal family issues, were about to make a hard decision. Like in the end, you never took. I mean, I think that there was a moment when you thought that you would not continue in music, and but I was wondering how harsh, how difficult can things really get in the industry to bring the feeling, like let's
Well,
call it a day.
I it was it was challenging enough after, with my Sony project, everybody that had signed me left. Peter Gelb, who left and went to the Metropolitan Opera, he
Mhm.
was my champion there, and then everybody that worked for him, they all left. I mean, it was. I remember my last days. My contract wasn't renewed, and but I remember the last days up at Sony Classical. It was as if there was tumbleweed blowing through the hallways, and they were giving away all of their audio equipment. I remember I went up to see my A&R guy, and he said, "Here, you want this turntable?" He's
Wow.
giving me speakers and turntables, because I guess the BMG people bought them out, and then they came in, and they had
Yeah.
different plans, and the plans did not include me. So, but that was disappointing. It was really disappointing, and but I take it like a month or two to cry a little bit, and then you go back out. I got a new manager, and that's when we started working on The Dark Side of the Moon, and then I got another deal with V2, and it was after the V2, tragedy, as far as like, because Dark Side was a labor of love for us, and
Mhm.
it was so magical that we got a deal, and then to have that all fall apart and poor V2 close, and I guess I had had enough. I felt like I just can't get my heart broken again like this, and I didn't see any way forward, and and I just felt as if I didn't have the finances to put a band together again and things like that. And then I met my husband, and he said, "Why why aren't you performing? My God!" And I said, "No, I'm done." And he just thought that was crazy, and he just pushed me and pushed me and pushed me until I said, he said, "What is the problem? Why won't?" And I said, "Because I'm I'm a serviceable guitar player, but I'm not a great guitar player in a way that I feel I should be after the people I've played with. I'm not going to soil my history by sully what I've done by being a lousy guitar player." And he said, "Well, that's just stupid because nobody's coming to hear you play guitar." And he dragged me out the summer that we met. he dragged me out to these awful um, open mic nights, which horrified me because it's like, Rich, I don't do that. You know, I'm Barry Fahl. Okay. So the diva in me came out. But what he did was so perfect because I was going in front of audiences that didn't know me, didn't care about October Project, and it made me get up alone with a guitar and a strange audience. And if I could compel them and hold that audience with just me, that I could do this. But then I said to him, okay, that's fine for 2 or 3 songs, Rich, but a whole show, I don't think so. So to prove it to him, I booked a show at a folk club in Connecticut, little folk club, and I really didn't tell many people. And I did the show, and some October Project fans were there. I don't know how they found out about it. And they came up afterwards, and I'll never forget this because I may not have continued on. It was challenging. I made a lot of mistakes, and but they said they felt as if something special had just happened, that they felt like, wow, this is different. And I think because I started opening up and telling stories in a way I never had before, especially I wasn't allowed to talk with October Project. So we were,
Allowed? You say allowed?
no,
Allowed?
I wasn't allowed. I mean, they really didn't want us to talk
Ah,
because they wanted us to remain, the record company to remain very, very mysterious. And it
okay.
was also, what would I say? I mean, so I started talking about my life, talking about telling stories about my life and my family in a way I never could have done with October Project because it was a group project. And so it would have been inappropriate. But I started doing that, and just another whole side of me came out that I didn't even know was there,
Mhm.
that would never have come out if I hadn't had to play alone. And so I said to Rich, okay, I'll do small clubs, but I'm never going to play a big club in a city. Okay. But of course, in the movie of my life, it would cut to again
Mhm.
the highlight reel of, Chicago, San Francisco. Okay. And with a little plane, going across the US. And yes, I started playing at you know big venues by myself, which was very frightening, but I did it. And then I got together with, and I released a record, and the record did pretty well. And I put a band together with Mark, and the rest is history. And so,
Yeah,
but if it
great.
hadn't been for my husband, I wouldn't have continued. I was done. Yeah.
Have you ever considered writing a book? If you're a good storyteller, isn't
I
such a
don't
bad
know,
idea.
maybe. Some of it, when I've heard people that do autobiographies speak, and I think when you have to, there are some times I would not want to relive that were
Okay,
really hard.
sure.
October Project was really hard,
Uh,
and not pleasant at all. So despite the success, and that would be, I just wouldn't want to immerse myself back in those times of my
mhm.
life again. And but I don't know. I mean, maybe, who knows maybe someday, maybe I'll change my mind about that.
No, I really meant the stories that you were telling this new audience that you were talking about recently.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. hmm
Yeah.
Now, I also heard that you made some music for a Civil War film and the influence of your dad. Is
Well,
that right?
yes, that's true. So well, my dad and I shared a love of Civil War history.
hmm
Uh, my nose is itch. I have these little hairs going into
No, yeah, it's okay.
itchy. I get it. And so, we would pass books back and forth. And my dad used to love Stephen Foster songs, and Stephen Foster was a Civil War era songwriter. He wrote songs like Jeannie with the light brown hair and really beautiful Americana songs. And so when I was on Sony Classical, they said, if you want to write for movies, we can't guarantee that you'll get the the song into a movie, but we could certainly get it to the director. And so I said, well, what movies are you releasing that, in terms of the soundtrack? And I looked and I saw, oh, they're doing Gods and Generals. And I knew that book, the Jeff Sharer novel. And I thought, ooh, oh, I'd love to try my hand at that. So I wanted to write a song that would sound sort of like a Stephen Foster song, like it would have been written in that era. But also, when you write for a movie or a book, you want to get into the minds of the characters, and you want it to be a song that they would sing, that they would listen to. And I was trying to get into the mind of the lead characters of Gods and Generals. That was the movie. And I just they talk about home all the time, and that they're fighting for that. And so I wrote the song, and uh just as we were finishing up recording it, and we just made a simple little recording of, piano and vocal guitar. And I found out that Bob Dylan had gotten the I guess the advance to write the song. And I thought, well, that's it for me. I don't have, I don't have a chance in hell. So I submitted it to Sony anyway. And the story was that the director was up in the Sony building on Madison Avenue. And my A&R guys said to him, hey, Ron, come on in here. I want you to hear something. He's like, no, the record's done. We're done. And he said, just 5 minutes of your time. So they bring him into the big conference room in the Sony building, and they have these giant speakers. And so they play my little demo for him. And he slowly started listening. And then he got up and went to the speaker, and he put his arms around the speaker, and then he put his hand on his heart. And he said, she understands these characters. She gets it. And I did get it. And anyways, he ended up putting that song at the beginning of the film. The film opens with my song, and it closes with the Bob Dylan song. And they turned the song, I mean, because they had to, they orchestrated it so it would it would fit in with the whole soundtrack. So it became a very big, extravaganza. Um, but yeah, I love writing for movies. I like I'm much more comfortable going outside of myself for inspiration. I mean, you always bring your own sensibility to everything you write, but I like writing for books, writing for movies. I wrote for another film called The Guys. I wrote a song called Dawning of the Day. And I wrote obviously for the Anne Rice novel. Anne Rice and I got to be friends. And I wrote the theme song for the audiobook of The Wolves of Midwinter. And that was the same thing, where you immerse yourself in the story, and then, the lyrics just come to you. It's fun. I'd love to do that again.
Who knows if you could want in the future write a movie score, instrumental music?
I don't know if I could write a score.
No.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I mean, but
Yeah.
but a theme song, definitely,
Maybe
definitely.
animation. I was thinking of Flow that won the Oscar, that type of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe.
Hmm.
You know
Yeah.
who someone from Latin America who I always say, if I could work with someone, it would be Gustavo Santaolalla. He's an Argentinian film
Yeah. Of
composer.
course. Yes. Yes.
I've loved his music since that album Run Rocco. Do you know that record?
Yeah.
It's charango music. Oh my
Hmm.
God. And I played that record, and have played that record to death for the last, I don't know, since it came out 20, 30 years ago. And so I would love to work with him
He
someday.
used to be in a very famous band, Arcoiris Rainbow, a rock band.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think he did the score to.
Brokeback Mountain
Exactly. Yeah.
and the Motorcycle Diaries.
as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Yeah, that a lot of the Ron Rocco music was in that. I just watched that again
Mm-hmm.
over the holidays, and there are people, individual people that I would love to work with. There's a Lebanese um, violinist, and now he's, I guess, or a conductor as
Mm-hmm.
well, Claude Shaloub. Oof.
Okay.
It's got that sort of Middle Eastern vibe to it, and I love his sensibility.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah,
Mm-hmm. Now,
that's
what? Yeah,
now.
yeah. How you can do that one day? Gustavo San, yo, we say Gustavo Santaolalla. It's a special
It's
name.
Santolaya,
Yes.
Santolaya, Gustavo Santolaya. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy.
No,
Not even
it's
for
not. I think Claudio had to train me how to say his last name,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, because you pronounce the double L like L,
like,
like something.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Now, this might be a short answer, but pros and cons of signing with a big record company versus going the indie way, so to speak, Mary. I suppose there must be some very interesting,
Well,
positive
well,
things.
what's nice about being on a label is that, at least my old experience was, that they have deep pockets, and the big
Mhm.
labels, so if they want to promote you, they can pull strings, they can get you a big manager, or they can get you in a movie, or things like that. So they have power and deep pockets when they want to. And but you really, at least my experience was, that you have no control. You
Okay.
have no control over the way you're packaged, the way you're marketed, the way. And so I always felt, well, I feel like I've made better records on my own. And I feel as if it was nice to just have all the control. And I'm not a control freak, but it was just nice to have things done the way you wanted them done. And at least I remember back in the October Project days, the Epic, on the first record really promoted us. So I'm grateful for that. I have a career to this day because of that. But um, they gave you the illusion of choice. You know, they'd say, if there was a photographer that we wanted to work with, they'd say, well, you could work with this person, or this person. And we'd say, well, okay, we'll take that one. They'll be like, no, you're going to go with this person. So we really, it was, again, the illusion of choice. They'd already made up their minds what they wanted. So it's nice to just be able to do things the way that you want. So there's pros and cons to both. I think it's, back in those days, was very difficult to be indie. It's very difficult to be indie now. I don't know how young bands do it. I'm lucky that I got a running start, that I had an audience in place already. um, and then, and nowadays there are other ways to get your music out there. I'm one of the I've made my peace with Spotify and Pandora and streaming, because it does bring your music worldwide, in a way that it might not be able to get out there. And so it doesn't bother me. YouTube is, a big way to get your music heard. So I always try to do little videos and things like that. Yeah, pros and cons. I'd love those big record company deep pockets, but I don't need them to do what I love. And uh I as long as I still have an audience, I'll be fine.
Now, about those days when you were, I mean, it must have been, sorry, October Project, that you used to work with small chamber orchestras back then. I mean, did you ever have a limitation of the budget, or was it an idea of the producer?
Well,
Um,
I've worked with little chamber ensembles on almost all my records. Mark Doyle, my producer, is a really, really good uh, arranger for strings. So we always use real strings. And there's a beautiful little group out of Syracuse that we always use. And again, with October Project, for the most part, in the recording, we used real strings. for the most part, and it makes a difference. You can tell.
Let me
Um,
just close the window, Mary. Somebody's making some noise here. Just a
okay.
second. Yeah. So sorry, I didn't know the lawnmower was visiting us this afternoon. Yeah. Now, let's go a little bit to Can't Get It Out of My Head album, which is a great song by Electric Light Orchestra.
Yes.
That's a tribute to your favorite bands. But I was going to ask you, how many bands and songs did you originally have, and how much did you
Oh, we went
cut short?
through, that's a
Uh-huh.
great question. We went through so many songs. There were songs almost made it,
Hmm.
but for me, if I can't bring something new to the song and make it my own, or if I feel like, hello, what
I'm
happened here?
here.
Oh, you started screen sharing.
I'm sorry.
Your screen sharing. There we go. No, no, you just went to the kick it. So if I felt like I couldn't bring something new and that my version was as good as the original, then I don't do it. So I was hoping to do that Procol Harum song, A Salty Dog, and I worked on it and it was good. But then I went back and listened to there's an extraordinary live version in from Denmark, and it's done with a whole chorus, and it's so beautiful. And I looked at Mark and said, I'm never ever going to get close to that ever. So why bother? I mean, go back and listen to the original. I don't like covers when especially when they're done to be different just for the sake of being different. I'd rather just listen to the original. And if it, I again, if it isn't as good as the original, don't do it. Don't go there. And so, yeah, oh boy, there were a lot of songs. And, but the ones we picked, again, the Neil Young, I had to do a Neil Young, and I had to pay tribute to Richard and Linda Thompson. Because they were, especially Linda Thompson was such a huge influence on me, and I didn't like any of the cover versions of The Great Valerio. I felt like it deserved a better cover version, and yeah, so it was a mix. I loved doing Tuesday Afternoon. Was a song I had wanted to record for years and years, and I always felt that there was a problem with the bridge, da 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 da, and I said to Mark, we have to conquer that bridge. We have to make that bridge different and our own, and I think we did. And so it's just it was a really Mark and I have a very good working relationship, and um, I feel very comfortable being creative and putting my 2 cents in with him. I never feel like I have to, uh, walk on eggshells with his ego. And yeah, we just was. I just loved making. I loved performing that record, and I loved playing the Mamas and the Papas. That was one of the first records that I ever heard that just it floored me the first time I heard the Mamas and the Papas when I was a child. It was just the harmonies were so beautiful.
With Monday, Monday.
Monday. That was the first, and
Mhm. Yeah.
oh my God, it was just a wall of this gorgeous sound. And so I always say it was probably no accident. I ended up in a band with two guys and two girls and lots
Uh-huh.
of things and everything.
But going back to Procol Harum, Mary, I was just thinking about, I mean, why a salty dog, which is a great song, as you say, the version was so fantastic and pure and untouchable that you prefer to let it go. But then
Yeah.
I was also thinking of the great hit of these guys. That was A Wider Shade of Pale that I think Annie Lennox also did. And I read
She
some comments that people find your voice a little bit similar to her voice, to Annie Lennox. I don't know what you
both
think,
sound like grown-up women, so that's a similarity.
but
We're both
yeah,
we're both altos.
yeah.
Uh, and oh, I mean, I love Annie's cover record. That was a really good record. She did a nice job with Whiter Shade of Pale.
But
And
did you ever think of doing it yourself? A Wider Shade of Pale?
I
Do you
guess
think
I
that?
could. There were just other Procol Harum songs that I liked more. Again, like a Salty Dog, and I like the drama of that song. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. Have you heard the live version in Denmark that he
I
does?
will. No, now that you mention it, I
Oh,
will.
oh, you'll thank me later. It's so good. It's like you'll get goosebumps.
I will, sure, yeah. Now, and I was thinking of what could an imaginary, or yeah, an imaginary most expected duet you would like to do with somebody. Duet, not solo. Uh,
Duet.
yes,
Oh, wow. Um, hmm.
your heroes. I don't know,
Oh,
present or
well,
not
my
present.
heroes are from way back in the day, but if I could do, oh, I mean, I worship at the temple of Peter Gabriel, so probably Peter Gabriel,
Hmm.
or maybe Sting. Again, I'm telling you, I'm just dating myself completely, but yeah.
Why Peter Gabriel? What's his
Oh
specialty?
my God, but
I mean, Genesis is my
what a
favorite
real
band. Let me
question.
tell you, Genesis is my
No, I
favorite
mean,
band.
it's just because I just loved his sensibility, and I love it. I don't know as our voices would really blend that well, but I always thought that my voice would blend really well with Michael Stipe of REM. That would have been fun back in the day to do it, some to harmonize with him because I thought that would sound really good. But
But
yeah,
is there any Peter Gabriel song you would particularly like to do with him, or a new song?
maybe anything, just new, old, anything.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Mercy Street. I think it would sound fantastic by you. Mercy Street. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's a Peter Gabriel did another album that I just that covers record Scratch My Back that he did with the
Yeah.
orchestra. Oh, his cover of Mirror Ball. That's an example of taking a great song that was already great because I love Elbow, and then just taking it up several notches, and it's just stunning. The orchestral arrangements on that album are gorgeous.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, what comes next, Mary, during 2025?
Well, I'm doing so I have lots of shows lined up with my band, and then I as I mentioned, I have a record coming out, and it's French classical songs,
Yeah.
and it's really beautiful. I think my husband thinks it's the best thing I've ever done, and I don't know if there's an audience out there for it, but I've played it for a few people, including my sister, who is not always a fan of everything I do, and she fell in love with it and said, "You have to release this year right away." So that's what's next on the horizon for me, and I'll keep touring and doing what I do, and after that, I don't know. I have some ideas.
Hmm. Where did the French inspiration come from?
I
Just
love that music. I love
you
early
like that?
20th century French
Okay.
music.
Uh-huh.
And Satie, Ravel, Poulenc, Fauré, um, Debussy. I just and as I mentioned earlier, I love Jesse Norman's versions of a lot of those songs. And there's songs I've listened to for years and years and years, and I just thought I could again bring a freshness to them, bring something new to them. Um, and I think I make the songs very listenable and accessible to people.
Do you speak a little Spanish?
Un poco.
Uh-huh. Ah, very good. But why? What? Would maybe you would consider doing your own Alfonsina and the
Oh, you mean like
Sea
sing in Spanish?
a little bit?
Sure. A little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah, yeah, maybe I could.
Some Violeta
Um,
Parra would be amazing, really, let me
oh my
tell you.
God. So I'd have to write to you and Claudio and get all the
Yeah.
suggestions. I mean, I know the Violeta Parra music and of course all the songs that Mercedes Sosa sang. Um,
Have you heard Victor Jara's Te recuerdo, Amanda, remember you, Amanda?
no.
That's a hymn in Chile. It's a very sad story. Well, Victor Jara's
It always
story
said
is
so.
not. Yeah. So you know what? I will send you those songs, and yeah, maybe for you to
Like if
listen.
you could curate 10 songs that
Yeah,
would be
I would
Spanish,
be
I
proud
would
and
love
happy. Yeah,
that.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Oh
I'm
my
thinking of
God.
your voice, Mary. I'm thinking of your voice, and that is truly unique.
It's
Uh,
interesting. I did a show. There was a
mhm.
benefit concert uh for in this country for the Chilean miners,
Okay.
when that happened several years ago. And so the fellow who was I guess in charge of the whole benefit asked me to come and sing and entertain for the dinner. And so I sang Violeta Parra and the Mercedes Sosa things. He gave me some songs. It was a while back, and I had to learn them all phonetically. But they're beautiful, beautiful songs to sing.
How long ago was that?
It was, well, when was the Chilean
You were referring to the 33 miners?
playing the miners?
Ah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay.
It was right around then. What year was that? I don't remember.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Some 8 years ago.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that would have been about right. So I
Hmm.
sang those songs back then, and oh, I mean, I would love to sing those songs. And again, also just those medieval Spanish songs. I'd love to. I like singing in foreign languages.
Uh-huh.
Just because the words are so much more delicious than English to me. So
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Apart from the phonetic, unique aspect, you are unique in the sense of this special intensity you have in the interpretation. So I think that would make these songs completely different, and I'm sure that would be many surprise people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even imagine them right now, sung by you.
Oh.
So yeah, I will send you some suggestions.
Oh,
Yeah, that's it.
yeah,
You have
yeah,
to release that.
yeah.
Yeah, start
Yeah.
doing some demos. Yeah, this is my humble suggestion. Well, Mary,
Okay.
yeah, it's
Well,
been
you know what? That's a
fantastic.
good challenge for me to
Yeah,
do that. And
but funny life is challenges, is it not? I mean, yeah.
well, you have to embrace the new if you want to keep
Uh-huh.
growing
Uh-huh.
and you want to get old, you want to just keep embracing new thing, novelty. And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
this has
Well,
been a lot of fun. And I'm actually, now you've really thrown the gauntlet down. I might take you up on that. I could go back and refresh, as I listened to like Alfonsina in the Sea and Gracias a la Vida and those songs and I've got all those. I've got a couple of right, but it's mostly Violeta Parra and the female singers and but not
okay.
but you could definitely clue me into
Wait, I was talking about Flirt before, the Dutch band, and once they came with Natalia Rogalski, who's a fantastic singer and model, and
Mhm.
she did Te Recuerdo Manda, and the people went crazy really, because just the song alone, put people in a special mood. It's very strong. It's very strong in every sense, and I mean, yeah, I
Do
will
you have
send
a
you the. I
recording of
will.
that that you could send me? I'd love
Sure,
to hear that. Would you do
I
that
will.
for me? Thank you.
Absolutely,
I'd
yes.
love to hear that.
Yeah, I will. So,
Okay.
well, it's been a real pleasure, Mary. It's almost surreal to me in Chile, Latin America, South America, having played October Project on the radio, and you never know who these people really are. So it's so
Yeah.
distant, but it's really the circle comes round, and you're a very kind and funny and interesting person to talk to. So I'm really proud and thankful for that. Yeah,
Well, thank you. You're a very gracious host, and you send me those songs.
I
I'll make
absolutely will.
I'll
Yeah, just
surprise
wait.
you.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
So thank you. Don't hang
Thank
up on
you.
me. Yeah.